Well, good morning. Well, I guess it's afternoon now, but I just wanted to share a little more with you today. Um, this is Friday. Been a couple days since I've been on here. I did one late one night, but today I'd like to entitle this "Don't Run." I've learned by experience that I should not be running from something that I know I should be doing. And I'd just like to share a little life story with you on what happened when I ran a lot. And all my life, off and on, I was convicted that I should study for the ministry. But no, that's a little big step. 1975 was the first time that I really thought about it. Did look into it a little bit, but didn't do anything. Started driving log truck, and anyway, about 3 years later, in 1979, I guess it was 4 years later, in 1979, I was impressed that I needed to go back to school. So I gave my boss notice and actually was offered a different job by another guy that had some trucks where I made really good money that summer. And then when the school time started, we moved down there. My wife got a job as staff, which gave me half of my tuition, which was a big chunk of money. I went for the first 2 quarters, left for spring vacation to go drive some truck for my brother-in-law, and then went back down to start my spring quarter. Actually had started it, and I called my brother-in-law up because I had this beautiful 57 Chevy and he was interested in it. So I called him up to find out if he was really going to do anything with it. And he told me about this truck he was buying, and I just had to go drive it. So old Jonah bailed off the ship anyway and went back driving log truck. Well, guess what happened? After a few months, they went broke. The ship sunk. Jonah was at sea. And so I didn't know what to do. I was just like, now what do I do? I got a job hauling chips instead of going back to school. And I was hauling chips between Medford, Oregon, and Eureka, California. One load a day, and I did mine at night. And anyway, one night I was coming back home, and we had been warned because some of us were cruising down through there, and there along the Smith River there is some very windy, narrow, crooked roads and a few straightaways. And so I was just let cars go by me because I wasn't in a hurry. And I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden I got a kink and I decided to go. So I was really making some time, just had to hammer down, and I saw this car ahead of me, and I thought, he's going to slow me down. I know there's a big, long, sweeping corner where the river makes a big, long bend, and there's no brush. I can see if anybody's coming. So I'll come up behind him fast, and when I hit that spot, I will zip around him. Well, it took me longer to get around him than I thought, and I wondered what he thought, because it was a little tighter than I had expected. And next morning when I got to work, I found out what he thought. I got thrown overboard, fired. It happened to be an attorney and his wife was driving. And she panicked, a big truck passing them on this big long corner. And she got over in the gravel and almost lost control. And so they called up my boss and told him, they were going to take him to court if they didn't fire me. Well, my boss told me, he says, and we're just making an example of you. You just happen to be the one that we're using for an example. But that was the only time in my life that I ever got thrown overboard. In other words, fired. And so I left and contemplated things and decided that Jonah better go back to school. That was the 82-83 school year, and I had started in 1979 and then was out a year or so there. And so I went back to school. My wife got a staff job again, which gave me half my tuition again. And I was really doing good. We finished the whole year, but my wife got sick. And she was so sick she couldn't work. She was just wore out. She just coughed and coughed and coughed. And so we left for the summer and thought we'd go out to Orleans, where we had raised our children partially, a little town way up along the Klamath River in Northern California, way out in the middle of nowhere. And I worked up the Salmon River a lot, which is really up in the Tules. And but anyway, I was supposed to have a good job driving dump trucks for a friend. I wouldn't be union, but I would be getting union wages. Well, that job fell through, and I didn't work all summer long. And finally, we got discouraged about school and went back down to Angwin, where we were going to school, Angwin, California, which is up out of the Napa Valley, and moved our stuff up there. And I had a job driving log truck, but it was very seasonal there, and I was at the bottom of the totem pole on seniority in a great big company. And my brother-in-law called me, a different brother-in-law, a brother to him, called me from Alaska, where he was working. It was Prince of Wales Island, which is out from Ketchikan. And so I went up there to drive log truck instead of go back to school. And we worked up there for a couple of months, and then I came back for the winter and took my family up for the spring. And we never really got working good in the springtime. They went belly up. They sunk. The ship sunk. And both times this happened to me, old Jonah didn't get paid his wages. And when you're living paycheck to paycheck, and all of a sudden the paycheck for $4,000 doesn't come, you're in a bind. So I moved back down to Washington State, the Vancouver area, and hauled logs all around there for 7 years. Had a good job. It was really a good job. And I worked there for 7 years. And then the old spotted owl started taking control again. And anyway, I even got in on some of the blowdown, hauling the blowdown from the Mount St. Helens blow up in the early 80s. And I worked there from 84 to 91, just even 7 years. And anyway, they were going to close up shop. And my boss was moving all of his outfits up to Alaska. And so I told him, I asked him to lay me off with the first group that got laid off. It was a big, fairly good-sized company. And I got timber retraining benefits for college, plus my wife got a staff job again. She was a cook at the college in their cafeteria. And so there's half my tuition. In that time, I finished. I had 2 years left, and I finished my college, and I finally graduated when I was 46 years old in 1993. And I was only 33 when I started school, but it took me that long because I ran. And my running experience definitely was not profitable. Very, very destructive in my income. And anyway, I was in the ministry until, like I mentioned here in the earlier videos, until I ended up with that post-traumatic stress disorder. My wife died of cancer in 2008, and I remarried again in 2010, and I'm happily married. But that really kicked off that post-traumatic stress disorder from Vietnam, and I got forced to retire. I couldn't deal with the stress. And I just wanted to use that as an illustration to tell you it doesn't pay to run. 97 or so percent of people that join the SAN run. They quit. And that's the only reason they don't make it. You can't help but make it in this company if you keep active and you don't run and you do what they say. So don't run. It's not profitable. And I just wanted to share that with you. And if you are interested in what I am so excited about, click on the link below. And we'll see you again maybe later today or tomorrow morning. Have a good day. Bye.